Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey. I've got a feeling after Game Week 23, wildcarding in Game Week 24 is going to be pretty popular. So in this video, I put together an early draft for wildcarding in Game Week 24 and have a look at a few different options in key positions that you might be deciding between. Welcome back everyone to another video. Now I'm recording this on the Saturday afternoon evening during the Liverpool-Bournemouth game. Bournemouth are actually 2-0 up. Ekitike's been benched, and earlier on in the day we had Foden and Haaland both coming off the bench for 1-pointers. Absolute chaos. And I do have a bit of a gut feeling that wildcarding is going to be quite popular anyway in Game Week 24, let alone as a reaction to what's gone on in Game Week 23 as well. Now, if you did enjoy today's video, I massively appreciate it. As always, if you could leave a like, and if you're new around here as well, do consider subscribing as well. Let's start off with the goalkeepers and the back line. In goal, no surprises to see Dubravka there whatsoever because he's a playing 4 million keeper. Even though it's not a great defense, he does sneak some save points. He's a good backup to have. He's especially a good backup to Jordan Pickford at the moment. So Jordan Pickford, I think it gets to a point with FPL where you just don't want to overthink your keepers. For the last 3 seasons now, Pickford has been right at the top of the charts, and he's doing so yet again. Everton have a knack of keeping clean sheets when you least expect it. And when they do, he tends to get bonus points. He tends to get save points. Even though he's quite expensive, I still really think he might be the way to go now. And he is a decent way into the Everton backline and a player that you can rely on to get 90 minutes in that Everton backline every single week. The 2 game weeks in particular, I would be worried about starting him. Game week 28 and game week 30, where he goes up against Newcastle and Arsenal, both away. Dubravka has decent home fixtures against, I think it's Brentford and Bournemouth. So you could play Dubravka in those 2 weeks, so they rotate fairly well. And of course, when we look at bench boosting later on in the season, you've got that playing backup keeper. Moving into the back line, I have gone with double Arsenal defence. Gabriel is a no-brainer. After that, Timber has just about snuck in on a wild card for me, and I'll flash up some alternatives in a minute after I talk about the next player. But I do still think that triple Arsenal is the way to go, regardless of fixtures. And then it's just a decision, do you want to go double Arsenal attack or double Arsenal defence? Now, given I don't really want Raya on a wild card, I think Pickford is better value. Then it basically leaves the defenders, or do I want to double up with Rice and Saka? I've gone with one of the two, not both. So I've gone with double defence, and they are the best defence in the league, possibly even in the world at the moment. Timber, I am a little bit concerned about his minutes moving forward. He's definitely in their best starting 11, but I am ever so slightly worried that Ben White's form, whenever he's been in the side, has been good enough that if Timber's a bit tired, he might get reduced minutes and White is a good stand-in. So a little bit concerned about that. We'll talk about the alternatives in a moment, but I think if I was wildcarding, I would still go there. The upside is there. The underlying data is fantastic. Arsenal are a great defence, and I do still expect him to start most of the time. Moving across to the other mid to upper price defender that I've got, Chalobah is in. Great fixtures between Game Week 24 and Game Week 27, which has been well documented. And I think if you're wildcarding, you do want to take advantage of that. He's another player who just has a knack of picking up points. Even if Chelsea don't keep a clean sheet, he seems to be picking up DEFCON or an assist or a goal. And he just has that knack of averaging out to 5 or 6 points a week at the moment. And if he hits all of them all at once, it could be a mega haul. So given the fixtures and given that he's the most nailed Chelsea defender there is, and that's not to say he'll start all of the matches without a doubt, because there is doubt there, but given the fixtures, I do want a piece of that Chelsea defence, and he's probably the safest route in. So not without risk, but he would be there. Now, I'm going to quickly flash up on screen, if I've got my graphic design head on for a second, the other 2 players that I would consider in those 2 spots. If you're not completely convinced on Timber and you want to attack Arsenal upside, Calafiori is back in training. He might become a pretty decent option in that Arsenal defence because his attacking data is fantastic. So if you like a bit of a risk and you want to take a gamble at a lower price, better value for money, and if you think Calafiori gets enough of a consistent run of starts, he could be a cheaper way into that Arsenal back line. And also, I wanted to reference Daniel Munoz and indeed the Crystal Palace defence in general, because they come into some really good fixtures, particularly in Game Week 26 and Game Week 27. But as an extended run, it's not bad. The reason I've not gone with him on my wildcard is, number one, Game Week 26 and 27 are when the fixtures are particularly great, so we can wait a couple of weeks. But also, Palace aren't in great form at the moment. They're losing players left, right and centre. The Glasner thing, where he might be off very, very soon as well, looks like he's going to stay around to the end of the season at time of recording, but it's still an issue that I'd have in the back of my mind. I would probably wait a couple of weeks now before going there in Game Week 26 itself, and I think I would prefer Chalobah with Timber for the time being. Final two players, Anderson. I would love to be more exciting in this position, and please do let me know if there's another 4.5, 4.6 million defender that you go after here. But Fulham's fixtures are pretty good consistently throughout the rest of the season now. And he's a player, even if they've got a poor fixture, you can still rely on him to hit DEFCON. His underlying attacking data isn't bad either. I think he'll just churn along with 4 or 5 pointers most weeks. And he's done pretty well for me as well so far. So a player that wouldn't be completely locked, maybe some more thinking needs to go into that position. Maybe you could just go with Chris Richards instead at around the same price. In fact, a little bit cheaper. And it gives you that route into Palace immediately. But Anderson's just been ticking along very nicely. So I think I'd include him. And then finally, Sunderland defender. I nearly put Alderete in, but I had a little bit of money spare on this particular draft. By the way, you should have plenty of money spare on this draft. I don't think there'll be too many people with problems in affording this one. And as such, I've gone with Mukiele, who, again, a bit like Chalobah, just seems to have a knack of picking up those extra routes to points, gets the assists, is playing in a fullback role more often now, so is getting those crosses in. I think the cross for the assist that he got today earlier on was due to his role in the team, obviously playing up on the flank, and it was a good cross as well. So Mukiele with a great home fixture at home to Burnley, in Game Week 24, and is still cheap enough that I'd probably include him. If you are struggling for money, Alderete is your 4 million defender of choice. I think he's up to 4.1 or 4.2 now, and has been frustrating recently, but still a pretty good alternative. Okay, so moving into the midfield, quickly ticking off the final player of my Arsenal triple up, Declan Rice. I've gone with him over Bukayo Saka, mainly for the saving in money, but also because Declan Rice has already proven this season that he's got plenty of different ways of scoring points. He's on some set pieces. His set piece delivery is fantastic. He gets DEFCON fairly consistently. And as we've seen, he does come up with the odd goal as well. So Declan Rice is in. I think it's good value for money. It's not like I've lost all faith in Saka, by the way. But the deciding swing factor here was the fact that it helps to afford other things. And with Gabriel back in and consistently scoring good points week after week, he's probably going to be my captain in Game Week 26 if I wildcarded into this side, if Arsenal got that double game week, which would be Brentford and Wolves away from home, if I remember correctly. That's obviously not a certainty, but if I was wildcarding, I'd want to make sure that I was confident on an Arsenal player in case they did get that double game week. And I think I'd be confident enough with captaining Gabriel. With that in mind, I'm happy to save the money on Saka, take the more reliable path with Declan Rice. You know the minutes are going to be good, and he's still got good routes to points. After that, I have gone with Morgan Rogers, but there are two alternatives in this exact position that I was umming and ahhing between. The thumbnail might be a giveaway on one of them, so I'll flash them up now. Rogers is one, Semenyo is another, and then finally Mbeumo for a Man United double up in midfield. There's not much between any of them, and I guess I've gone with Rodgers because I actually really like the fixtures for such a long period of time now, all the way through to Game Week 36, and if you're wildcarding early, I think setting up your team in a way where you've got as few doubts as possible, and you can just rely on 5 or 6 of these guys not to ever need a transfer out. Rodgers is going to be one of those guys, gets 90 minutes a match. Although the underlying data isn't fantastic, I've talked about it so much on this channel, so I don't want to continue to go over trodden paths already, but I've just got a feeling he's going to continue to overperform on the data. The fixtures are really good, 90-minute man, and I do have a weird gut feeling that he's in the mix for penalties for Villa, and he might take the next penalty. Can't guarantee it, just a feeling, but he's in the mix. We know that Emery has already listed him as one of the 3 penalty takers a few weeks back alongside Tielemans and McGinn. And McGinn is out for a little while now, and Tielemans, I think, has missed the last 2 penalties. So gut feeling, Rodgers might take the next one. And as such, I think I've got him as my preferred option over Semenyo, who looks great so far, but I just can never guarantee the minutes of Man City midfielders. Even Foden now might be an issue. Obviously, Cherky's an issue. Doku, earlier on in the season, looked nailed, became an issue. Same with Reinders. So although Semenyo looks great for minutes now, and I'd love to include him on a wild card because the upside is there, he's a fantastic player. In a few game weeks' time, we might start doubting it. There might be something that changes, something that shifts, and it would just worry me a little bit. And Mbeumo, very, very close to wildcarding into him. And actually, between Rodgers and Mbeumo, it's almost 50-50. If you prefer Mbeumo, I suggest you go for that. Little bit more expensive, doesn't have penalties, and to be fair, we don't know that Rodgers does either. But there's just something telling me I want a little bit of Aston Villa coverage. So I've gone with Rodgers, but please do understand that Mbeumo is very much in the mix. Maybe by the end of this week, if I was to wildcard, I've seen enough to go with Mbeumo instead. Just slightly favouring Rodgers right now, though. Fernandes, do we even need to discuss it? Absolute lock on a wildcard. So many routes to points. Even in that number 10 role last week against Man City, he picked up DEFCON. Let's see how he does against Arsenal, but the fixtures for Fernandes and for Man United kind of start in game week 24. Absolute lock, barring injury against Arsenal. Obviously, I'm recording on the Saturday, but completely locked into the side. Enzo Fernandez would be the Chelsea midfielder I went with. I still have doubts over Cole Palmer's fitness and how many minutes he's going to get in the Premier League over the next few game weeks. As such, if Palmer's minutes aren't that great, one, I wouldn't pick him because he's a lot of money and probably gets brought off early, might even get the odd benching as well. But two, if Palmer's not on the pitch, Enzo probably takes the penalties and plays in the 10. So with all of that in mind, I think his minutes are fairly secure. I wouldn't be shocked if he got one benching in the next 4 or 5 weeks, but more secure than Palmer. And if Palmer's not on the pitch, I think Enzo becomes a better asset. Good value for money, good fixtures, as I mentioned, with Chalobah, so he would be on a wild card. Harry Wilson, finally, I think it's just acceptance that he is just going to continue to get points and hurt me week on week. He has been one of the most punishing players that I've had to go up against all season. Could have bought him in at any point and I just haven't. And if I was wildcarding now, I think I'd just cut my losses and buy him. Still at a very good price. So good value for money. Scored a scorcher of a free kick in game week 23. 8 Premier League goals this season I think is his best ever. And up until this point, the data's always looked pretty good for a player of that price, but it's the minutes that have been in doubt. I don't think we can doubt the minutes anymore. And as I mentioned with Anderson, the fixtures for Fulham are pretty good all the way through, and especially up to game week 31, 32. So I think I'd just include him. And he's a player I've gone up against for so long now, but I think I would just say, you know what? If I was on a wild card, which I could be, it's not impossible, I am myself, I think I'd just have him at this point. Okay, so the forwards might be quite a short section. I will start off with Erling Haaland, though, who, of course, has been in pretty poor form, came off the bench in game week 23, so got his first benching in quite a long time now, and arguably doesn't have the best fixtures over the next few. And I did weigh up the idea of maybe building a wildcard draft without Erling Haaland in it, but I looked around and I tried building it, and if I don't have Erling Haaland, I'm not sure really where I'm spending the money. I could spend the money on Bukayo Saka over Rice, but I don't think that's a massive upgrade. I could spend the money on Cole Palmer over Enzo, but again, I'm not that convinced that Cole Palmer is going to be secure for the next few game weeks. I could even go with Mo Salah instead. And obviously, I'm recording during the Liverpool game. If he scores a hat-trick in the second half, I might be more tempted. But I'm not completely sure on Mo Salah as a pick right now. So I think I'd just toe the line, I suppose, and go with Erling Haaland. It is the safe pick right now. He's been in poor form, but he does have a bit of a knack of just exploding all of a sudden, and he still probably would be the obvious captain most weeks at this point. So one to monitor, and maybe that's something that would actually put me off wildcarding this week because I'd maybe want a little bit more information before going against him, and wildcarding out of Erling Haaland might prove to be a really powerful thing to do in a few game weeks' time if he continues to underperform. For now, he's still in. I still think the fixtures are good enough to captain him at times, not every week necessarily, but I just don't know where else I'd use the money, and I'm happy with the rest of the team, even with Erling Haaland in it. So he stays. I think Thiago is just the best of the other forwards right now. Jarrod Bowen's put his hand up a little bit. You could look at him instead. Ekitike, I just don't think you can rely on him to get solid minutes week in, week out, as it has been proven in Game Week 23. And the value for money is just better on Thiago. He's on penalties. He usually gets 90 minutes. The next 2 or 3 fixtures are not good. It is worth noting. But on a wild card, I think I've built this well enough that if you wanted to, you could arguably even bench him in 1 or 2 of those poorer fixtures. But with a striker, especially a penalty-taking striker who is so talismanic, never a bad player to be starting, honestly. So Thiago, probably the best of a bad bunch, and he's not bad by any means, but there aren't many other forwards I like the look of. Jarrod Bowen at a stretch, but I still think I'd go Thiago over him at time of recording. Finally, I've gone with Mane instead of Krupi, but that's, again, another 50-50. You could afford either with this wildcard draft unless you've got really bad team value. So Krupi has much better data. I'll flash them up on screen now. Has much better data. Obviously has Wolves in Game Week 24, so it's a better fixture. You could play him maybe even over Thiago if you were really brave. And Krupi's minutes right now look pretty solid, considering they've lost Semenyo, they've lost Kluivert for a while now. However, he does tend to get subbed off pretty early on the regular, and Mane has that chance of a double game week in 26. Obviously, it's not a great double game week with Arsenal included in that, but it's still a double game week potentially. So 50-50 on that. I think I might even be talking myself into picking Krupi over Mane, to be completely honest, because the data is that much better and he's got a real eye for a goal and he's in a better attack. So maybe Krupi is the answer here, but Mane's minutes look very solid now and he might have that double game week. So I'll leave that up to you, and maybe over the period of time we've got between now and Game Week 24's deadline, we get some info on double game weeks for Game Week 26, and that might swing you one way or the other, depending what that news might be. So I'll leave it there, but very close between Mane and Krupi. I've included Mane. I might have actually talked myself into Krupi whilst filming this. So anyway, we reached the end of the video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it's given you something to think about on a wildcard if you are indeed activating the wildcard this week. Leave a like if you have enjoyed it. Hit subscribe if you're new around here as well. And let me know, because I'm sure there are loads of players. If there's anyone I've missed, drop them below and we can have a chat about them in the comments as well.